Get stealing, woo, wheeling, dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Kurt Angle, yeah. Why, Triple H, you son of a tell me why. And Tony Khan, this is also on you.
I am going to ruin wrestling.
Just get over it.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is the WrestleHavoc podcast, episode 3. It is May 11th, Mother's Day, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you guys had a great time with all of your mothers, of course. It's Mother's Day. I know I did. Had some great food as well. But yeah, man, it's May 11th, 2025. Of course, this is episode 3 of the WrestleHavoc podcast. Not so great news that we got today. Breaking news, and unfortunately, this is sad news. We found out this morning, or really, I found out this afternoon, but a lot of people found out this morning, that Sabu, ECW legend Sabu, has passed away at the age of 60. And this shocked the whole wrestling world, considering Sabu had his last match only a couple of weeks ago. He was still wrestling, even at age 60. He was doing a couple of indie dates. And when I found out that he was still wrestling, I mean, it was just, to me, shocking to me, considering he's 60 years old and he put his body on the line through a lot. He really did put his body on the line through a lot of stuff. But he wrestled Joey Janela, and he got a great send-off at that show. But we're going to be talking about Sabu on this program. It's actually going to be our very first topic that we're going to be talking about. Plus, we're also going to be talking about WWE Backlash. WWE Backlash, of course, took place last night in St. Louis, Missouri. And we had the main event of John Cena defending his 17th world champion, the real world champion. Defended his title against, of course, Randy Orton in what was a really good match. I really enjoyed the match, and a lot of people are even considering that match to be even better. I don't even want to say even better. A lot of people are saying that match was 10 times better than the match that we got at WrestleMania 41 with Cody Rhodes. So we're going to be talking about that as well. Alberto Del Rio is in the news, as WWE has signed Alberto El Patron, who is, of course, the current AAA Mega Champion, to a WWE contract, and a lot of other AAA names were signed under WWE contracts as well. So we're going to be talking about that. Ricochet and Javon Evans went through a Twitter banter. Yes, they went at it on Twitter, going back and forth. And a lot of people are saying Javon Evans cooked Ricochet. A lot of people are saying Ricochet cooked Javon Evans. I'm here to tell you that Ricochet cooked Javon Evans. But at the same time, we got to be honest with ourselves. The whole banter between both Ricochet and Javon Evans was kind of a joke. So we're going to be talking about that as well. Hulk Hogan is once again in the news as well. Hulk Hogan embarrasses himself once again. Numerous times. Hulk Hogan has embarrassed himself so many times I can't even count. Of course, he has his Real American Beer. He had a lackluster announcement with Eric Bischoff announcing who that third man is, and that third man ended up being somebody that nobody knows. At least from the pro wrestling community. Maybe in the amateur wrestling community, people know who he is, but in the pro wrestling community, nobody knows who he is. But he was in the news this week. He was in the news this week for all the wrong reasons. He went on TMZ. He went on the Pat McAfee show. And he called Shelton Benjamin Shelton. Numerous times. So we're going to be talking about that as well. Of course, AEW has Double or Nothing happening May 25th. It's going to be taking place in Arizona. We also got Saturday night's main event. 2 matches, or at least the first match at least has been announced for Saturday night's main event. There's another rumored match happening at Saturday night's main event, and by the looks of John Cena's face at that press conference, you already know what that match is possibly going to be, so we're going to be talking about that. We got a lot of news to talk about right here on the WrestleHavoc podcast. Of course, if you guys don't know, the WrestleHavoc podcast is a show that happens every single Sunday. We talk about everything going on in the realm of professional wrestling, whether that is WWE, AEW, TNA, or any other news that is going on in the wrestling industry. We talk about it right here on the show. We do recaps of pay-per-view events and interesting moments that happened in this past week in wrestling history, or not in wrestling history, in pro wrestling. I'm sorry. The news of Sabu was really got to me today. It really did get to me because Sabu is arguably one of my favorite ECW wrestlers of all time. But we're going to be talking about Sabu right here on the show. But before we get into all this craziness, please make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc channel right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the friggin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, check out the WrestleHavoc podcast, not only on this channel, that being on the WrestleHavoc YouTube channel. Also, check out the WrestleHavoc podcast on WNN, the Worldwide News Network, on their Facebook page, but also on their YouTube channel as well. So without any further ado, let's get straight into the news. So hold on. Let's get straight into the news, ladies and gentlemen. Just let me fix this issue right here. All right. So we're going to be talking about Sabu. Sabu, if you guys don't know, has passed away. It was announced that Sabu has passed away earlier this morning, and he was 60 years old. If you guys don't know who Sabu is, in my eyes at least, one of the most popular acts that came out of ECW. And it came to a shocker with a lot of people that Sabu passed away. I actually tweeted this out on Twitter when I found out the news. I found out I got the news that Sabu passed away around probably, I think around 2 o'clock, 3. I think it was around 3 that I found out the news that Sabu passed away. And I was in the car. I was in the car when I found out that Sabu passed away. And I actually found out via a friend on their Instagram story. Shout out to my good friend, Nick Storm. If you guys don't know Nick Storm, he has a YouTube channel where he reviews pro wrestling action figures. But I found out via one of his Instagram stories that Sabu passed away. And it shocked me, man. But Sabu, who is Sabu? If you guys don't know who Sabu is, who is Sabu? Well, Sabu, a lot of people call him. Well, not a lot of people. Every wrestling fan, whenever he makes his entrance, every in-ring wrestling announcer calls Sabu by this. He was the suicidal, homicidal, genocidal, death-defying Sabu. Sabu was one of the most violent wrestlers out there, man. Sabu is arguably one of the most intense and one of the most daring wrestlers that you could possibly ever watch. Sabu was crazy. And I'm going to name two matches that if you guys don't know about Sabu, I want you to watch two matches that Sabu has wrestled in, but I'll talk about that later. Sabu, if there's one word that I can describe Sabu, it is the definition of innovative. Sabu, for a lot of the stuff that he's done, especially in ECW back in the 90s, that's where a lot of people found out about Sabu. ECW was where Sabu really, took off in popularity, and a lot of people found out about Sabu. Because keep in mind, in the 90s, there wasn't social media. A lot of people found out about ECW, whether that was locally or whether they were tape trading. Because ECW's core audience back in the 90s were hardcore wrestling fans. I'm talking about the fans that were in the internet during the early days. So it was crazy. Bob Vinto is in the chat. R.I.P. Sabu. Yes, R.I.P. Sabu. But a lot of the fans from ECW were hardcore wrestling fans. And ECW was, at the time, the number 3 promotion in the United States. But it was a distant number 3. It was a relatively small organization. But a lot of what made ECW popular was not just the violence that you saw in ECW. A lot of it had to do with the interaction with the fans. And a lot of it had to do with the great in-ring action. Not just the violence, but the great in-ring action that you saw on ECW. Sabu was one of those guys that really made ECW popular. A lot of people point to the barbed wire match that he had with Terry Funk back in the early 90s. This was during the early days of ECW. He had a barbed wire match with Terry Funk. If you guys want to watch that match, go ahead and check it out. If there's anything that Sabu is known for, it was known for using barbed wire a lot. People always have the thought of ECW was the organization that created hardcore wrestling. They did not create hardcore wrestling. Hardcore wrestling existed way before ECW. I'm talking about FMW, that being Onita, FMW in Japan. They did a lot of the hardcore stuff way before ECW started doing it. ECW was known for introducing hardcore wrestling to the national audience here in the United States. That was what ECW was known for. And it was, they were doing a lot of things that, if you really think about it, the organizations at the time, the WWF and WCW, just didn't do. Because if you compare the WWF and WCW, especially WCW, way before, the NWO, ECW was doing way more violent stuff than WCW ever was. Because both the WWF and WCW were doing cartoon wrestling, as a lot of people would say. And ECW gravitated towards human emotion. If you guys really want to grasp the history of ECW, there's two documentaries that I really want you guys to watch if you guys ever get a chance. One of them is on Peacock. It's called The Rise and Fall of ECW. It's one of the best documentaries that WWE has put out, and it talks about the history, the majority of it in depth, about the history of ECW, and it included a lot of names that were in ECW at the time that were a part of the WWE during the time the documentary was coming out. Guys like Paul Heyman, Bubba Ray Dudley, Tommy Dreamer, all those guys. There's another documentary called Forever Hardcore. It is basically like the bootleg version of ECW, the Rise and Fall of ECW. It's basically the same version. It's essentially the same thing as the Rise and Fall of ECW, but it goes a little bit more in depth about the history of ECW, and it involved names that were not involved with the WWE at the time. So I'm talking about guys like New Jack, Sandman, Todd Gordon, who's the original owner of ECW, and a lot of the talent that were not under contract with the WWE at the time that the documentary came out. Back I believe it was in 2004 that the documentary came out. It goes in depth about ECW, and both of them talk about Sabu. And Sabu was one crazy individual. He inspired a lot of people to do a lot of the crazy maneuvers today. Sabu was known for jumping back and forth, doing crazy stuff, doing springboards, doing springboard leg drops, throwing chairs. Sabu was known for throwing steel chairs. Normally, people would hit, like just swing the steel chair and hit it. Sabu was known to really throw the steel chair at people's heads. Sabu was a crazy individual, and he was way ahead of his time. I've always said this. Guys like Darby Allin, who wrestles for AEW, guys like Darby Allin, if you really think about it, he is a modern day Sabu. A lot of the stuff that you see guys like Darby Allin do, because Darby Allin is a risk taker. He puts his body on the line through hell. Through hell. He puts his body on the line through hell and has no remorse whatsoever. He just does it, and to an extent, he kind of enjoys the pain. I know that sounds very ludicrous, but he gets a kick out of the pain. At least from what I observe and what I see from Darby Allin. A lot of the stuff that Darby Allin does today, I guarantee you he got inspired by guys like Sabu. Sabu inspired a whole generation. I tweeted this out earlier today when I found out about the news that Sabu passed away. Let me pull up the tweet right here. And this is still really devastating. I tweeted multiple tweets, but this is one tweet that I really pointed out. Fearless and an innovator of a lot of the stuff that you see in today's wrestling. Sabu was one of a kind and paved the way for a generation. I've always said this, guys like Darby Allin were inspired by guys like Sabu. And I'm going to read a couple of tweets by a couple of people. Ibu, if you guys don't know who Ibu is, he runs Wrestle Pierce on Twitter, and he's very knowledgeable about this stuff. Ibu tweeted this out. Rest in peace to one of wrestling's greatest innovators. I love you, Sabu. Pro wrestling owes you a lot, and you deserved much more from it 100%. JD from New York, he's a popular wrestling podcaster. He tweeted this out. I bought VHS tapes from some kid named Joe in high school because my parents wouldn't let me watch ECW because it was on too late. When I did, Sabu was a primary reason why. His battles with RVD and Jerry Lynn hooked me as a fan for life. Of course, Sabu, I believe, was a former, I think it was FTW champion. I believe he held the FTW title for a while. So FTW stands for F the World. And it's basically like a non-official world championship. And it was held by Taz. And I believe Sabu held that title for a while. Correct me if I'm wrong. Bully Ray. I think Bully Ray. Let me pull up a tweet by Bully Ray. Bully Ray also tweeted on Twitter, a brotherhood and bond that very few in our business will ever understand. And tomorrow on Busted Open Radio, we will pay respect to one of our own. Rest in peace, Sabu. And thank you for being the pioneer and the originator of getting the tables. Hardcore wrestling, whatever you want to think about hardcore wrestling does have its audience. You know, if you don't like extreme wrestling or as a lot of people call it, garbage wrestling, which I don't think it's garbage wrestling, you know, or deathmatch wrestling or any bit of that. I love watching deathmatch wrestling. I know it's not a thing for a lot of people. I've gone to multiple shows where they had death matches. Sabu, a lot of the stuff that you see in today's wrestling in terms of the underground, in terms of a lot of the death matches, in terms of a lot of the violent stuff, and even the stuff you see on WWE and AEW when it comes to like barbed wire and stuff, because sometimes they can push it to the limit, especially AEW. They tend to push it to the limit a little bit too much. A lot of the stuff you see today, again, was inspired by Sabu. Sabu was basically the originator of all of the things that you see in terms of violent natures and in terms of violent acts on pro wrestling programming. If there's any two matches that I really want you guys to go ahead and watch, and when it comes to Sabu, there's two matches that come to mind when I think about Sabu. Number one, the first match that I want to mention is TNA Turning Point 2005. Now, there are numerous matches that got me hooked into TNA when I was younger. Number one was Triple X versus America's Most Wanted. Of course, Triple X is Christopher Daniels and Elix Skipper versus AMW, America's Most Wanted, in the six-side steel match. Of course, everybody talks about the three-way match, AJ Styles versus Christopher Daniels versus Samoa Joe at Unbreakable 2005. But this is not the main match for me, but one of the matches that really got me hooked into TNA was involving Sabu, because Sabu did have a brief run in TNA. And this is actually one of the most popular matches in TNA's entire 20-plus year history. It's Sabu versus the Monster Abyss. Abyss. Sabu versus the Monster Abyss. Barbed Wire Massacre. If you guys don't know what Barbed Wire Massacre is, basically, it's a normal match. It's a normal match, but instead of having ropes on the ring, the ropes are replaced with barbed wire. So the entire ring is surrounded by barbed wire. And you win via pinfall or submission. Mostly pinfall. But that match was pure violence. And it shocked a lot of people. So if you guys haven't got the chance to check out Sabu versus Abyss, TNA Turning Point 2005 Barbed Wire Massacre, I urge you guys to go check it out. The second match only happened a couple months later, and this happened back in 2006. So in 2006, Sabu left TNA, and he went to work for the WWE. And this was when WWE was relaunching ECW, because if you guys don't remember, WWE, I believe, purchased the assets of ECW back in 2003, because ECW went under in 2001, but they went bankrupt. So they had to file, Paul Heyman had to file bankruptcy papers, and WWE purchased the assets in 2003. 2005, they did their whole reunion show, and he did make an appearance at that one-night stand show, and I believe he wrestled Rhino at the 2005 one-night stand. But then, of course, WWE did another reunion show at the Hammerstein Ballroom in 2006, and they not only did a reunion show for ECW, but they also relaunched the entire brand. They relaunched the entire brand entirely, and they put ECW as a 1-hour show on the Sci-Fi Network. Long story short, the relaunch, hindsight is 2020, was deemed as a failure. I'll talk about that in another, probably maybe in a This Day in History segment. But if you really think about it, later on throughout the life cycle of the new WWE version of ECW, was deemed as a failure. But in the beginning, it wasn't really like that, and especially that first, the kickoff, that being the second one-night stand. Sabu wrestled on that second one-night stand, and he wrestled Rey Mysterio for that world title, because Rey Mysterio at the time was the world heavyweight champion, and he actually, I think he beat Kurt Angle and Randy Orton at WrestleMania 22. And that was in Chicago, but a couple months later, he defended the title against Sabu. And this is on the same night that RVD wrestled John Cena for the WWE title. Imagine if Sabu and RVD both walked out as world champions at that ECW show. It would have been glorious. But only RVD walked out as champion. But long story short, the reason why I urge you guys to check out Rey Mysterio versus Sabu at ECW One Night Stand is because of the fact that it's known for one spot that ended the whole match. And that was basically, there was a table set up in between the barricade and the ring apron. And keep in mind, they're in the Hammerstein Ballroom, which is a relatively intimate and a small venue. And the table was set up on top of the barricade and on top of the ring apron. So it was basically like balanced. Rey Mysterio was on top of that table. Sabu, being the crazy guy that he is, he would always set up chairs and always run over the chairs and then go over the ring. He went on top of the ring and he did a springboard and he hit a DDT on Rey Mysterio by hitting the springboard on the outside through that table, and it ended the whole match. Both men were knocked out and the whole match ended. It's a very good match. There was also another spot in that match where both had chairs and both hit each other with the chairs and then threw the chairs at each other. Again, it was a very well done match. And it's remembered a lot by a lot of people. But Sabu, man, passing away, again, came to a lot of shock to a lot of people. Because, again, Sabu wrestled his last match. It was only a couple weeks ago, WrestleMania weekend. I believe it was at a GCW show. I believe he wrestled Joey Janela. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he wrestled Joey Janela. And I remember when I found out that Sabu was like still wrestling, like he would still do those crazy matches sometimes. Like if you guys saw Sabu, he has a bunch of scars all over his chest. If you see the photo that I put up right here on the graphic, if you guys do a little bit of close up, Sabu has a bunch of scars on his chest and on his stomach. That is because of all the brutal things that he put his body through. Again, Sabu was a guy that put his body on the line, and it didn't matter. He put his body on the line through thick and thin, and didn't care. He had no remorse. He put his body through hell. But Sabu wrestled his last match. I believe it was against Joey Janela, and it was only a couple months ago. And it was a farewell match. It was his last match. And he was 60 years old. And only a couple of weeks later, he passed away. Now, we still do not know the details as to how he passed away. But again, it came to a lot of shock to a lot of people, especially a lot of people that are friends with Sabu that came through ECW. I'm talking about the Bully Rays, the Tommy Dreamers, the Sandmans, all those guys. It sucks to lose a legend. The Ravens of the world, of course. It really does suck to lose a legend, and he will 100% be missed. I'm definitely going to miss him. It just sucks, man. You know, I've always said this whenever a wrestler passed away, and I said this when Jay Briscoe passed away, because Jay Briscoe passed away 2 years ago, and that was a shock to a lot of people, because like Jay Briscoe was like an active wrestler, and I actually had the privilege of watching both Jay and Mark, the Briscoe brothers, wrestle live at a GCW show, and they were fantastic. When Jay Briscoe passed away, I said this on my show: tomorrow is not guaranteed. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. You know, tomorrow, a lot of people say we're going to do this and that tomorrow, but then before you know it, you don't wake up the next day. There's no tomorrow. Treat every day like it's your last day, because you do not know when your time is up. You don't know when your time is up. So my thoughts and prayers go out to Sabu and his family. They must be going through a tough time. We lost a big one. We lost a big one today, and he will 100% be missed. He will deeply be missed. Sabu, we love you. Rest in peace. And yeah, goodbye. Moving on to continuing on with the show. We're going to be talking about Backlash. Backlash, of course, took place last night in St. Louis, Missouri. And overall, it was a very good show. I enjoyed the show for what it was. Of course, WWE, a lot of people were angry about that ending at WrestleMania 41 with, of course, John Cena beating Cody Rhodes for the undisputed title. But they were not pissed about that. They were not mad that John Cena won number 17. They were not angry that John Cena won his 17th World Championship. They were angry about the way he won. And of course, he won via the help of Travis Scott. Oh, but it made sense. Travis Scott was, he was there when he turned heel. Well, the biggest problem with that was the fact that The Rock was not there. So a lot of people were upset about that. And now a lot of people are viewing John Cena's heel run so far as kind of disappointing. And personally, if you think that way, I have no problem with it. I'm still going to give it a chance. From what we saw last night, I thought what we saw last night was great. But we're going to be talking about John Cena versus Randy Orton. But overall, what were my thoughts on Backlash, man? Backlash overall was not a bad show. Is it going to be vastly remembered as one of the best WWE pay-per-views of all time? No. But it was a pay-per-view that got the job done. It was a B pay-per-view. It was a B-level pay-per-view, and it only had 5 matches on the card. And a lot of people were complaining about the fact that the match only had 5 matches on the card. And I look at these people, and I talked about this on my predictions video, and I talked about this on my live stream when I was reacting to the entire event. Why, oh why, are people complaining about the amount of matches that are on a WWE PLE? Why are people complaining? These are the same people that complain about the match quantity on AEW pay-per-views. I could make the argument that AEW pay-per-views are way too long. They would announce 5 matches on a pay-per-view, which is the perfect amount of matches for a pay-per-view. And then in the week heading into that show, they'd announce 6 more matches, so you have 11 matches on that card. The problem with AEW pay-per-views is 9 times out of 10 AEW pay-per-views always tend to hit, and they always tend to be great shows. They always tend to be great shows, 100%. But the problem with it is sometimes the show will go too long, and you have matches on that card that really do not need to be involved, that do not need to be a part of the pay-per-view. They could easily be on television. We didn't have this with this show. A lot of people complain about the match quantity for WWE PLEs nowadays, but people need to understand this is Triple H we're talking about. Triple H is the head of the creative direction for WWE. If you guys don't know, he ran NXT, which is their developmental system. He ran NXT, which was their developmental system, and it's still their developmental system. And when he ran NXT, they had their pay-per-views called NXT TakeOver. And whenever they would do a TakeOver show, they'd have 4 to 5 matches on the card. The reason why they have 4 to 5 matches on the card is because they know each of those matches serves some sort of importance. You're not going to have 12 matches on the card and have 10 of those matches mean nothing and only 2 of those matches mean something. 5 matches on the card is not bad. Not to mention, you're watching a WWE PLE on Peacock. And how much you pay? $7.99 on Peacock? It's not like you're paying $50 for a pay-per-view. On one hand, I understand why AEW, which is WWE's competitor, puts like 12 matches on the card. Because you're paying $50 for it. But at the same time, there's an old phrase, quality over quantity. And sometimes AEW puts way too many matches on their pay-per-views. And that's why I'm enjoying, the WWE PLEs so far. But nonetheless, Backlash was a really good show. I enjoyed Backlash for what it was. Again, we had 5 matches on the card. We had, of course, John Cena versus Randy Orton. We had the 4-way for the U.S. title, that being Jacob Fatu defending his title against Drew McIntyre, LA Knight, and Damian Priest. We had the Intercontinental Championship on the line as Dominic defended his title against Penta El Cero Miedo. We also had Lyra Valkyria defend her Women's Intercontinental Championship against Becky Lynch, which ended in shocking fashion in the sense that I thought Becky Lynch was actually going to get the win, but she didn't. She actually got the pin. Or I should say Lyra got the pin, and Becky was the one that got pinned. And, of course, we had Pat McAfee versus Gunther, which was a fantastic match. A lot of people were complaining about, oh, my God, Gunther, why is Pat McAfee on this card, blah, blah, blah. But clearly, I think people shut up last night after they watched that match. They kept their mouth shut when they were watching that match. But let's do a brief recap of WWE Backlash. To start with, we're going to be talking about, of course, the first match that was the Fatal 4-Way for the United States Championship. So hold up a second. So we had Jacob Fatu, who is the current U.S. champion, and he defended his title against LA Knight. Of course, he defended his title against LA Knight, Drew McIntyre, and Damian Priest. Overall, this was a really good match. A really, really, really good match. Jacob Fatu, if you look at the card on paper and you watch the product on a weekly basis, you kind of already knew who was going to win this, who were going to win the matches. Jacob Fatu just won his Intercontinental, I keep getting those titles mixed up. Intercontinental and U.S. title. It's like in AEW where they have the International and the Continental Championship. Jesus Christ. Jacob Fatu, when he won the U.S. title at WrestleMania by defeating LA Knight, you knew for a fact that Jacob Fatu was going to hold on to that title for a long period of time. You just knew that he was going to hold on to that title for a long period of time. Considering the way that WWE has booked Jacob Fatu ever since making his debut last summer, you already knew. You already knew. Jason Alfonso on the chat saying this match was trash. I disagree, man. I disagree. I thought everything that went down in the match was not bad at all. It got the job done. Was it a 5-star classic? No, it was not. But it was a match that got the job done. Everybody got their chance to shine. There was just one spot where everybody hit their finishers on one another. It was great stuff. But the main story that we need to talk about when it came to that match was, of course, what went down. What went down at, of course, Backlash in that U.S. title match? Of course, throughout the build, Jacob Fatu was having a little bit of conflict with Solo Sikoa in storyline. Of course, Solo Sikoa is running his own version of the Bloodline. Jacob Fatu wants to do things on his own, but Solo Sikoa insists. So Jacob Fatu was coming in, guns blazing, And he came in. He came in. And who came out? Who came out? Jeff Cobb. If you guys don't know, Jeff Cobb was a wrestler for New Japan Pro Wrestling. He wrestled in New Japan. He wrestled a couple of matches for AEW as well. He wasn't signed by AEW, but he wrestled a couple of matches as a New Japan wrestler over in AEW. So Jeff Cobb came out and basically, essentially took out all of the guys that were in the match and only left Solo there. And he's like, hey, get the job done. And Solo got the job done, hit his finisher, and boom. And boom. Jacob Fatu retained, got the 1-2-3, and he retained the U.S. title. But Jacob Fatu was not so happy that Jeff Cobb showed up. He was not happy that Jeff Cobb showed up. So there's some sort of tension going on in Solo Sikoa's bloodline. Overall thoughts on this. Jeff Cobb, number one, Jeff Cobb is fantastic. If you guys haven't seen Jeff Cobb, he's not your average big guy, but he's definitely a guy that you definitely want to check out. I think WWE will present Jeff Cobb really well. But not only that, Jeff Cobb is a part of Solo Sikoa's bloodline from what it looks like. He is going to be part of his bloodline. But the one thing I will say about Jacob Fatu is, from what it looks like, they're booking Jacob Fatu as a heel. Jacob Fatu currently, as of right now, is a heel. But there's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Eventually, Jacob Fatu is going to be a mega babyface. I don't care what anybody says, because ever since Jacob Fatu came into the picture, he was essentially the enforcer for Solo Sikoa's bloodline. And if you know about the term enforcer, Solo Sikoa was the enforcer for Roman Reigns' bloodline. And remember when Solo Sikoa came in, everybody was like, oh my God, Solo Sikoa is going to take over Roman Reigns' place, blah, blah, blah. And Solo Sikoa becomes, the leader of his own bloodline, takes out Paul Heyman, all this stuff. And it kind of fell flat on its face. Solo Sikoa eventually, unfortunately, kind of botched his whole run, in my eyes at least, leading his version of the bloodline. Jacob Fatu is essentially what Solo Sikoa should have been when Solo Sikoa was a part of Roman Reigns' bloodline. Jacob Fatu is the pure definition of an enforcer, but an enforcer that will eventually break out as a single star, which is great to see. And Solo Sikoa, a lot of the crowd is starting to get behind Solo Sikoa. Eventually, we're going to get a match between both Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. A lot of people are gravitating towards Jacob Fatu. I think I'm mistaken. I think I did say a lot of people were getting behind Solo Sikoa. No, it's not Solo Sikoa. People are getting behind Jacob Fatu. I think I botched that statement. So forgive me, guys. I'm a little passionate. But a lot of people are starting to get behind Jacob Fatu. A lot of people are starting to get behind Jacob Fatu. Eventually, we're going to be getting a match between both Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. So be on the lookout for that. We do not know when, but clearly WWE is building towards it. Jacob Alfonso in the chat. Thanks for reading the comment, brother. No problem. And once again, Jason Alfonso in the chat. Jeff Cobb is legit. I will say that 100%. The guy is legit, and he's a perfect fit for Solo Sikoa's bloodline for now, because eventually he's going to break away. There's one thing that WWE's really good at. WWE's really good at building big guys. WWE. They're by far the better product right now. But if there's one advantage that WWE has over AEW, is that WWE knows how to book big men. AEW does not. They just don't. We've numerous times. Look at Wardlow. Wardlow was a big fumble. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that was Jacob Fatu versus us in the 4-way match, and he retains his U.S. title. We got the Women's Intercontinental Championship match as Lyra Valkyria defends her title against Becky Lynch. So, I talked about this in my predictions video, but this was one of those matches that I was just not really that excited about. I was not excited about this match whatsoever. And the reason why I say that is because I thought the way that WWE went about Becky Lynch's heel turn was just really dumb. It made no sense, in my eyes at least. Because, number one, the original advertised match for WrestleMania was Bayley and Lyra Valkyria wrestling Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan for the women's tag team titles. That was the original advertised match for WrestleMania. For whatever reason, WWE took out Bayley. They took out Bayley from the match and replaced her with a mystery partner for Lyra Valkyria. And that mystery partner ended up being Becky Lynch. It ended up being Becky Lynch. I thought they did Bayley way dirty in that scenario. In my eyes, at least. They did Bayley way dirty. And I hated that for I hated WWE for that. It was really dumb. I felt bad for Bayley in that scenario. She was basically shunned by the wayside. They advertised the match with Bayley, and then all of a sudden, last minute, they took her off the card. That's exactly what happened. They took her off the card last minute. Imagine you being a wrestler. You're in an advertised match for WrestleMania, the biggest show of the year. And all of a sudden, WWE tells you, oh, we got a bigger star coming in, so we're going to replace you. That must suck. I'm sorry. That is terrible. Terrible. It got a lot of people upset. I know I was upset because of that. I was very upset because Bayley's very good at what she does. But so they had Becky Lynch return, and they actually had Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan drop the women's tag team titles to Lyra and Becky. So Becky became the tag team champions, but they only held those titles for a day because they had a rematch the next. Was it the next night or 2 nights later? I forgot what night that took place. Either night 1 or night 2. I completely forgot. But they wrestled on the Raw after WrestleMania. They had a rematch on the Raw after WrestleMania. It was Raquel and Liv versus Lyra and Becky. And we had a scenario. We had a situation in which basically, I believe it was Lyra that got the pin. Correct me if I'm wrong. And what happened was Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez regained their tag team titles. So you had the baby faces at you had Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch win the tag team titles at WrestleMania only to drop them on Raw. I hate when WWE does that because they did it with Zack Ryder back in 2016. They did it with Zack Ryder in 2016. They did it in 2016 and it was dumb. They had him win the ladder match for the Intercontinental title, and then the next night on Raw, boom, he dropped it back to The Miz. Now, granted, The Miz had a great run with that Intercontinental Championship. He had a great run, a fantastic run. Arguably his best run ever. But at the expense of Matt Cardona over Zack Ryder. You know what I'm saying? It really did suck. But after that tag team match, you had Becky turn heel on Lyra Valkyria. She turned heel on Lyra Valkyria. Don't you think it would have been so much better if they had Becky turn heel at WrestleMania? I think it would have gotten a better pop at WrestleMania instead of on an episode of Raw. Now, granted, the Raw after WrestleMania is the most, exciting Raw of the year. The Raw after WrestleMania is always exciting. But again, I'd do something like that at WrestleMania. That's just me. But this whole feud, to me, was kind of lackluster. In my eyes, at least. I was not really that interested in what I was watching. WWE tries to make something interesting whenever they would do a big brawl between two wrestlers. Whenever they would do a brawl between two wrestlers on an episode of Raw or SmackDown, WWE is desperate for this particular feud to get attention. And that's what they did with Becky Lynch and Lyra Valkyria. But they tried their best and they did a pretty good job, but I was still, it didn't get me over and I still wasn't excited about the match. But then the match happens. The match was not bad at all. I actually enjoyed the match. I was shocked that WWE actually had Lyra Valkyria retain her title. I was shocked because I stated in my prediction stream that, number one, WWE is they are utilizing the Women's Intercontinental Championship, and they're treating it like garbage. Because remember, they introduced a Women's United States Championship and a Women's Intercontinental Championship. They had tournaments for those respective titles on both Raw and SmackDown. And WWE, since Lyra Valkyria has won the Women's Intercontinental title, she hasn't done anything with that title. I am sorry. The Women's Intercontinental Championship is in the same boat as the Women's U.S. title and the Women's Tag titles. Though all three of those titles are, to me, are just props. They're just props. They're just belts. They're just there. They're not championships. Why do I say that? It's because of the fact that WWE just doesn't do anything with those titles. And I said this in my prediction stream. If you really want to make that title mean something, number one, you need to put it on somebody credible. And that's no disrespect towards Lyra Valkyria. Lyra Valkyria did what she had to do with that title. It's not her fault. It's the booking's fault. It's creative's fault. They're the ones that really had no plans and no real follow-up. It's their fault. It's not Lyra's fault. But they need to have somebody credible hold on to the title. Not to mention they need to have a good story for that title. They need to have a good storyline for that championship. So when Lyra Valkyria pinned Becky Lynch, I believe it was a roll-up pin. They did a whole angle where Becky Lynch was beating up Lyra Valkyria. They had her apply the disarmer submission. Boom. An angle started, and clearly they're going to still feud for the next couple months. What are my thoughts on that? Honestly, I was shocked about the ending of Lyra getting the win, but with the angle that they shot after the match, me personally, I'm not upset about it. Because if you have a storyline that tries to grab people, it will 100% make the Women's Intercontinental title at least mean something a little bit more than it already is. Or than it already is. It already is. That makes no sense. It wasn't really anything. So with a storyline like Becky Lynch versus Lyra Valkyria, with the effort that WWE could possibly do, it could possibly, elevate the Women's Intercontinental Championship to something special. I may be totally wrong and they may totally botch this, but I thought the angle that they did between Becky Lynch and Lyra Valkyria after the match was not bad. Moving on. We had the Intercontinental Championship match as Dominic Mysterio defended his Intercontinental Championship against Penta. So Dominic Mysterio, of course, won a Fatal 4-Way at WrestleMania. And it was a Fatal 4-Way involving his Judgment Day partner, Finn Balor. And, of course, there was some sort of tension going on between both Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio. And this was something that really just made the match mean something even more, man. Dominic's crowd reactions have been relatively positive as of late. And, of course, the finish to that Fatal 4-Way match at WrestleMania, of course, involved Finn Balor hitting his finishing move, only for Dominic to basically hit the frog splash out of nowhere and pin. He pinned Finn Balor. I believe he pinned Finn Balor. Braun Breaker did not even get pinned. I believe he pinned Penta or Finn Balor. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he basically stole Finn Balor's win. He stole Finn Balor's win. And that was such a shocker to a lot of people. That was so good. And once Dominic hit the 1, 2, 3, once Dominic got the pin, the crowd in Las Vegas went ballistic. They went crazy. Absolutely crazy. They went ballistic for Dominic Mysterio. Dominic, and the way that Dominic reacted was insane as well. This guy, normally when you win a championship and you get shocked and you're like, oh my God, I won this title, blah, blah, blah. You leave the ring and then you go to the back. No, as Dominic was walking up the ramp, this guy ran back into the ring. And once he ran back into the ring and went up the top rope and held up the title, the crowd went even louder. This guy went from being the biggest heel in all of wrestling. It was not just the biggest heel in WWE. He went from being the biggest heel in all of wrestling to being the biggest babyface in all of wrestling. And he's still being booked as a heel. Think about that. Think about that. Think about that. It's crazy. So Dominic, again, he's another one. He's going to be somebody that's going to be holding on to that Intercontinental title for a long period of time. A long period of time. The mid-card scene, I'm not going to lie, is pretty interesting. Very interesting. The mid-card scene, I'm digging it. I'm digging it. I mean, you got Braun Breaker. He was the former Intercontinental Champion, and the way that they're booking Braun Breaker is fantastic. Not to mention him joining Seth Rollins. Come on, man. You got to love it. You got to love it, man. But still. Dominic versus Penta. Dominic versus Penta was not a Lucha Libre classic. It was not. If they had the WWE shackles off, they'd go ballistic. They'd go crazy. But they played it safe with this match. And of course, the crowd was all about Dominic. If there is one positive that I can say about Dominic Mysterio versus Penta, it was the crowd. every time Dominic did something, whether that was setting up a 619, the crowd would go crazy. They'd literally stand, like literally the crowd, one by one. If you watch Dominic inches away from hitting the 619 at Penta, the crowd just stood up and they were going crazy for Dominic. Every time Dominic does something big, the crowd goes insane. I'm telling you guys, Dominic is super over right now. Dominic is super over with the crowd. It's crazy. It is crazy. And the guy's living life. I said this way back at my WrestleMania stream. Dominic is living life. He's got the girl and he's got the title. And also the guy's super popular. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. But the main story, of course, was of Judgment Day getting involved, that being JD McDonough, Finn Balor, and, of course, Carlito. But then they eventually got banned from ringside. And normally, whenever there's interference in a match, the referee looks at all the wrestlers that are interfering in the match. They point at them, and he, brings out his arm and says, "Get out." But this part was interesting because when Dominic was in the ring and all the Judgment Day members were out, Finn Balor had the chair. The referee caught Finn Balor having the chair. He pointed at each and every one of the members of the Judgment Day, that being Finn Balor, JD McDonough, and Carlito. He pointed at them one by one, and the crowd was going, "You, you, you." And then as soon as the referee said "get out," the crowd screamed "get out" with the referee. It was crazy. It was crazy. I know. It was crazy. But nonetheless, man, of course, we had El Grande Americano, which is basically Chad Gable, dressed as a luchador because he's trying to learn the craft and the art of lucha libre. He basically cost Penta the match. He cost Penta the match, and that was that. Dominic retains the Intercontinental Championship, and he's going to ride high with that title for a long period of time. Gunther versus Pat McAfee. Gunther versus Pat McAfee, again, was another match that a lot of people were scratching their heads about. I wasn't one of those people. I really wasn't one of those people that were scratching their heads when it came to Pat McAfee versus Gunther. Now, on one hand, I can understand the argument of it's a big downgrade from defending the World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania. And if you really look at it in retrospect, it kind of is. It kind of is kind of a downgrade because you went from defending the world title at WrestleMania to basically wrestling a celebrity from the sports world. Now, I can understand that argument, but at the same time, Pat McAfee is not just normal sports celebrity. I mean, Pat McAfee is an integral part of WWE programming. I view Pat McAfee as a part of the show from all the work that he's been doing throughout the past couple of years in the WWE. And I talked about, and I've said this numerous times, the hate that Pat McAfee gets to me is so fake. So fake. One of the fakest things I've ever seen. I don't understand the hatred that Pat McAfee gets, in my opinion. I really, 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 really don't understand. I don't understand the hate that Pat McAfee gets. It just makes no sense. It really doesn't make, realistically, it just doesn't make any sense. It does not make any sense whatsoever. It's just dumb. It's dumb hatred that a lot of people get for Pat McAfee. It's dumb. Why do people hate Pat McAfee? Why? For the way that he speaks, for the way that he marks out and goes all ballistic on commentary. To me, Pat McAfee brings a level of excitement whenever you watch a WWE show. Whenever you watch an episode of Raw on Netflix, dude, Pat McAfee is an integral part of that. Every time Jey Uso does his entrance, I feel like Jey Uso's entrance is incomplete whenever, Pat McAfee's not there. Because every time Jey Uso does his entrance, of course, you're going to have Pat McAfee go on top stand up on top of the announce table and yeet and dance with Jey Uso. You know what I'm saying? It's small things like that matter. And Pat McAfee is someone that matters when it comes to WWE programming. He just matters. So, of course, Gunther is all pissed after he lost the World Heavyweight title in embarrassing fashion at WrestleMania. And I thought the way that he lost the world title, look, Jey Uso winning the world title at WrestleMania made sense because they were building up to Jey Uso for a while. It was the right decision to make. I just felt like the way that they went about it was the wrong choice. I thought them making Gunther tap out was kind of dumb on WWE's part. I didn't understand why they did that, but they did it. They had Gunther tap out. I don't know. That was their choice. But of course, Gunther went ballistic. He took it out on Michael Cole. And of course, he went to bat, that being Pat McAfee, went to bat for Michael Cole. So Michael Cole is a part of this storyline as well. Michael Cole is a part of this storyline. And of course, after Pat McAfee went to bat for Michael Cole, Gunther went all crazy and attacked Pat McAfee. He attacked Pat McAfee. And here's one thing I will say about this whole angle. Michael Cole went from being the biggest, like people need to understand. Back in the days of Vince McMahon, when Vince McMahon was running creative, everybody, and I mean everybody, hated Michael Cole. Everybody hated Michael Cole simply because of the fact that he didn't sound organic. A lot of the things that he said sounded very forced. And to an extent, they really did, considering who was in his ear. Vince McMahon was in his ear probably yelling the whole time, telling him to say this and saying that. Once Triple H took the book back in 2022, once Vince McMahon stepped down and Triple H took the creative reins back in 2022, in the summer of 2022, Michael Cole sounded completely different. He sounded completely different. You could even make the argument that Michael Cole started to sound a little bit different when he was first paired with Pat McAfee back in 2021. I can make that argument 100%. But Pat McAfee, it's not just Triple H. Pat McAfee being in the booth with Michael Cole makes Michael Cole 10 times better than he already was. 100%. Michael Cole, man, is now beloved by a lot of people. And a lot of that has to do not just with Triple H, a lot of that has to do with Pat McAfee. And to an extent, a lot of that has to do with Michael Cole as well. Because when Vince McMahon was running the WWE, a lot of the stuff that Michael Cole said, I guarantee you Michael Cole didn't want to say. Because again, he was saying what Vince McMahon was telling him to say. With Triple H, yeah, he's going to tell you to say this and that, but Triple H lets the talent be talent, and he lets, the commentators be them. And I think in this case, he lets Michael Cole be Michael Cole. And now people look at Michael Cole, and Michael Cole is like literally one of the most beloved figures in WWE nowadays. That wasn't always the case. People need to remember that. That wasn't always the case, but I'm very happy that Michael Cole is getting a lot of praise, because keep in mind, Michael Cole has worked in the WWE for well over 20 years. I think a little over 30 years. Correct me if I'm wrong, but well over 20 years. Well over 20 years, man. Michael Cole being involved in this was great. The match itself between Pat McAfee and Gunther was phenomenal as well. Everybody knew what Pat McAfee was capable of. He had a couple matches in the ring back in NXT, and of course on the main roster a couple of years prior. Everybody knew what Pat McAfee is capable of. Not to mention Pat McAfee is a fan, so he's going to know what to do. But if you really think about it, Gunther carried Pat McAfee. A lot of the things that makes Gunther great is not just his in-ring ability and his presence or his promo ability. His promo ability is fantastic. But a lot of the things that makes Gunther great is his ability to make talent good. It's his ability to make talent look good. He did that with Jey Uso. He did that, with a lot of other wrestlers. I mean, he made Drew McIntyre look phenomenal. He made Sheamus look great. Now, granted, Drew McIntyre and Sheamus are great regardless. They don't need Gunther, but still, they made him 10 times better, or he made him 10 times better than they already were. And he's also great at, carrying a bunch of guys that, Gunther probably may have more experience than. Pat McAfee, of course, he's only had a couple of matches, but you can tell Gunther carried Pat McAfee in this match. And I mean that in the best way possible. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in the good way. One of Gunther's strengths, again, one of Gunther's strengths is making talent look good, making his opponents, making the people that he works with look good. He can literally make anybody look good. He could freaking wrestle a mop and you will make the mop look good. That's how good Gunther is. You know, there was a lot of discussion of Will Ospreay because Will Ospreay made some comments about saying that he doesn't like the style of WWE and their style. And he says that he believes that he's the best wrestler in the world. I actually agree with a lot of the stuff that Will Ospreay says. A lot of people took offense to what Will Ospreay said, but people need to understand that a lot of the stuff that Will Ospreay says is justified because he is the best wrestler in the world. But if you disagree with Will Ospreay, that is okay too. If you disagree with Will Ospreay and you think Gunther is by far the best in-ring wrestler in the world, I do not blame you either, because he clearly is. Gunther is phenomenal. I mean, Will Ospreay and Gunther are polar opposites. Will Ospreay does a lot of the high spots. He does a lot of the flips. He does a lot of the dives. Gunther is more of a grounded wrestler. He focuses a lot on chops and pain. He's very much like a rough type of wrestler. He's down. He's grounded. That's how good Gunther is. But Gunther looked phenomenal in this match. Pat McAfee, of course, hit him with a couple of chops. Gunther hit him with a couple of chops. The involvement of Michael Cole was great as well. It was phenomenal. I loved the involvement of Michael Cole. The involvement of Michael Cole, again, sparked and really made the storyline great. Michael Cole being involved in this, made the storyline worth watching. It really made it. Hell, it even made the match worth watching. So he got involved, but eventually Gunther ended up getting the win. And after the match was concluded, of course, Gunther essentially shook the hand. Well, not shook the hand, but gave his respects to Pat McAfee. So overall, this was a really good match and a really fun match to watch. A really, really, really fun match to watch. Moving on, we got, of course, the main event, that being John Cena versus Randy Orton. The match was dubbed one last time. It was dubbed one last time. And from the moment, people need to understand, from the moment WWE booked St. Louis for the Backlash PLE, number one, a lot of people were surprised that they booked St. Louis, considering the fact, think about this. A lot of people were surprised that they booked St. Louis, considering the fact that the last 2 years, Backlash essentially went international. They went to Puerto Rico 2 years ago, and they had that phenomenal match with Damian Priest and Bad Bunny. And of course, they went to France last year, and the crowd in France was unlike anything I have ever seen. International crowds are the best. Not to mention the United States. A lot of the fans in the U.S. are actually looking at the crowds internationally, and they're like, you know what? You think you guys can do that? We're going to do that. We're going to sing a lot of wrestler songs, and a lot of people be singing Randy Orton's theme song whenever he comes out. But yeah. So we had John Cena versus Randy Orton. When they announced this match, when they announced Backlash was going to be in St. Louis, you already knew that they were going to do Randy Orton versus John Cena. Because, of course, St. Louis is Randy Orton's hometown. What are my thoughts on this match? Number one, right off the bat, this match was 10 times better than Cody Rhodes versus John Cena. Now, I was one of those people that actually thought John Cena versus Cody Rhodes was not a bad match. It was not a bad match because I already knew what John Cena was capable of. I mean, John Cena's getting up there in age. You know what I'm saying? He was getting up there in age. What did you guys expect? But after, The Rock came on the Pat McAfee show and spewed the beans explaining why he wasn't there, it started to change my perception of the match a little bit. Again, could the match have been a little bit differently? Yeah, 100%. But is Cody Rhodes versus John Cena considered one of the best WrestleManias or the worst WrestleMania matches of all time? It was not a bad match, but at the same time, it's not, I'm not going to consider it as one of the best matches. If anything, if you really think about it, if you thought that match was a letdown, that's your opinion. I'm not going to dispute against it because I totally understand your argument. But this match was definitely better than Cody Rhodes versus John Cena at WrestleMania. Not to mention, this match was all over the place in terms of the overbookedness. This match was way overbooked. They did a lot of stuff in this match. They did shenanigans left and right. Another one of the highlights about this match were the RKOs. Of course, the RKO is Randy Orton's finishing move. Every time when Randy Orton does an RKO, whenever he hits an RKO, it always gets a pop from the audience. But man, the amount of RKOs that Randy Orton hit. And this is before he hit, that he hit that RKO compilation on all those producers. I mean, the amount of RKOs that this guy hit, were legitimately out of nowhere. But Randy Orton hit a bunch of RKOs, man. And of course, that spot where he went ballistic and RKO'd literally everybody in sight. That was fantastic stuff. That was great stuff. Now, I will say, when I was reacting to this match, and you can see my reaction on the stream, it's up on my channel. The funny thing about it is, in the beginning stages of the match, it started off a little slow. The match realistically started a little bit slow. But once the action spewed all the way to the outside, and then the announce table spots started to happen, and then, all the shenanigans started, that's when it started to catch my attention. That's when it really realistically started to catch my attention. And that's when really I started getting invested in this match. But the big story about this match was how John Cena retained his title. Now, I feel like wrestling fans should have known by this point. It's wrestling. Shenanigans always happen. It's wrestling 101. You kind of knew coming into this match that John Cena was eventually going to retain either by cheating or by getting assistance by somebody. Whether that assistance was maybe even Travis Scott once again. I don't know how well that would go over with a lot of the audience, but you never know. A lot of people expected a return of Cody Rhodes. A lot of people expected that on this show, but we didn't get a return of Cody Rhodes. But hey, they're waiting it out. And I talked about this last night on my stream. There is a rumored tag team match that is not set to take place, but there is a rumored tag team match that could possibly happen. And it's involving Cody Rhodes and Bad Bunny teaming up to take on John Cena and Travis Scott. That is a big deal in terms of, marketability and in terms of, name recognition. A lot of people want, WWE wants to bring in that casual audience. You bring in Bad Bunny and you bring in Travis Scott. But that is the rumored tag team match that could possibly happen later this year. It's like the WWE version of WCW Bash at the Beach 1998. If you guys don't remember, Bash at the Beach 1998 had Hulk Hogan team up with Dennis Rodman. Of course, Dennis Rodman played in the Chicago Bulls, and he was a part of the NWO. And they wrestled Diamond Dallas Page and Karl Malone. So that, it's the parallels are there. But that's the rumored match. But we didn't get a Cody Rhodes return on this match. But again, the way John Cena won or retained his title was very funny. So, of course, what happened was the referee got knocked down like 3 times. There was 2 referees. The first referee got knocked down twice. And then the next referee that came in got knocked out again. And once that referee was knocked out, of course, what happened? What the hell happened? R-Truth comes in. R-Truth comes in. And if you guys don't know who R-Truth is, you guys should know. R-Truth, his character nowadays, is a guy that is just acting dumb. He's like stupid. Like he enters himself in these situations, and it's like the polar opposite of what he thinks that situation is. That's how R-Truth is. And R-Truth always said that, oh yeah, I was always John Cena's best friend. Yeah, my bad. So he comes in and he's like, he tries to help John Cena. But eventually what happens is that I believe he gets RKO'd by Randy Orton. Only for John Cena to take the advantage, hit him with the low blow, and then grab the title, and then hit Randy Orton with the title. And I believe he hit the AA, and boom, gets the 1, 2, 3. I'm just naming this off the top of my head. I didn't write notes. But essentially, R-Truth cost, think about this, essentially R-Truth cost Randy Orton the match. He cost Randy Orton the match. That's exactly what happened. And what happened after that? John Cena wins the title, or retains the title. He grabs the microphone and just goes on a rant and says there is no competition whatsoever. Now, once he spoke on the microphone and he said that there was no competition whatsoever, I'm going to be honest, I thought we were going to get a return of Cody Rhodes, because we haven't seen Cody Rhodes since WrestleMania. We haven't seen Cody Rhodes return since WrestleMania. So I thought Cody Rhodes was going to come out, but the show ended. But then what happened? More stuff happened at the press conference. It's like everything has to happen at a press conference. Ever since Brawl Out, when CM Punk went ballistic at that press conference back in 2022. You guys remember that? Remember when he went ballistic right next to Tony Khan and he berated the entire media I remember that week like it was yesterday. But John Cena, of course, went to the press conference, and he wanted to be respectful because the last time he answered everybody's questions, the response that he gave was, "That sounds like a clickbait question. Next question." So he wanted to be respectful this time. But the WWE was really smart. WWE was really smart because they only had one reporter from the media ask a question to John Cena. But right before John Cena was about to answer that question, R-Truth literally came in and basically interrupted the whole thing. And what happened? What exactly happened? He says, "Oh man, I'm your biggest fan, blah, blah, blah. I wanted to help you out there. And I know, I don't believe that the people say that you can't wrestle." And that set John Cena off. And then John Cena was like, "You better watch your tone, blah, blah, blah." And he said it very calmly, but you can tell he was aggravated. He was upset. And what happened? R-Truth responded, but right as soon as he was about to respond, John Cena picked him up, and right in front of the media, he hit the AA and dropped R-Truth through the table where all the microphones were. So he basically attacked R-Truth in front of the media. That was fantastic. So it really changes my whole opinion on the whole match. But after this, where will this be leading to? What will this be leading to? So, of course, we got Saturday night's main event happening. It's going to be taking place May 24th in Tampa. And, of course, it's going to be a quarterly special on NBC. And we have 2 matches announced for that show. The first match, we actually realistically only have one. The first match that was announced was, of course, Logan Paul facing Jey Uso for the World Heavyweight title. If you guys want to know why Jey Uso did not wrestle on the show, it's because they wanted to save that match for Saturday night's main event because they need to stack up that show. But also the rumored match that is set to take place at Saturday night's main event is John Cena versus R-Truth. Now, on paper, that sounds like a really dumb match. But at the same time, I understand why they would book a John Cena versus R-Truth match. It's because R-Truth, again, he fancies himself as a big John Cena fan. They want to do something entertaining. So I would understand why they do it. They would do a John Cena versus R-Truth match. And not to mention, when I saw that first report about them possibly, announcing R-Truth versus John Cena, I was kind of scratching my head. But then after that angle that happened at the press conference, I'm like, why the hell not? Do it. Do it at Saturday night's main event. Do it. But that angle was fantastic. So what are my overall thoughts on Backlash? Overall thoughts, I thought Backlash was not a bad show. Backlash was not a bad show whatsoever. If anything, I actually relatively enjoyed the show for what it was. It was 10 times better than the first night of WrestleMania. 10 times better than the first night of WrestleMania, because the majority of the first night of WrestleMania, and the first night, I didn't say WrestleMania as a whole or night 2. I said the first night of WrestleMania was kind of a dud until that triple threat match. But Backlash overall as a show was not bad at all. Will it be considered as one of the best pay-per-views of the year? Probably not. We're probably going to get better shows later on down the line. But nonetheless, I thought Backlash was a really good show. And of course, the next pay-per-view that we're going to be having is AEW Double or Nothing, which is going to be May 25th. But we're going to be talking about that later on in the show. Before we move on to our next topic, of course, I just want to let you guys know, thank you guys for joining me right here on the stream, whether that is on the WrestleHavoc channel or on the WNN Facebook page and YouTube channel. So I really want to thank you guys for showing up on the stream tonight. Of course, this is episode 3 of the WrestleHavoc podcast. Of course, the WrestleHavoc podcast is every single Sunday night, where we talk all things professional wrestling. But before we continue on with the show, please make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc channel right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the freaking referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And I got an announcement. Since, of course, Double or Nothing is going to be taking place May 25th. That is on a Sunday. The May 25th edition of the WrestleHavoc podcast, I'm aiming, hopefully, if we get, everything in line, hopefully, I'm contemplating about possibly doing that live stream earlier in the day, considering the pay-per-view is going to be on Sunday night. And normally I do the podcast on Sunday night, so I'm contemplating on possibly doing it earlier in the day or maybe on Saturday. But also Saturday, we have Saturday night's main event. So most likely it's going to be May 25th, but it's probably going to be either in the morning or in the afternoon because I have to do another stream doing my live reactions for Double or Nothing. So be on the lookout for that. I will give you guys more details in the coming days. But moving on with the WrestleHavoc podcast, we got a lot of things to talk about, man. We're going to be talking about Alberto Del Rio. Yes, Alberto Del Rio is in the news. And a lot of people were shocked about this news, considering WWE tried very hard to distance themselves away from Alberto El Patron or Alberto Del Rio, considering this guy is just a lunatic on all levels. But one of the big stories this week, Alberto Del Rio or Alberto El Patron has signed a new contract under the WWE umbrella. Basically, he signed a WWE contract. So, I'm reading this from WrestleZone's website, but Alberto Del Rio has signed with the WWE. Of course, he is the current AAA Mega Champion. Conflicting reports have emerged about Alberto Del Rio's contract status as it relates to WWE's acquisition of AAA. Super Lucha's Ernesto Ocampo and the Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer had indicated that Del Rio, the current AAA Mega Champion, has already inked a new contract with the WWE. Meanwhile, Corey Hayes of Bodyslam.net reported that Del Rio remains signed to a AAA deal, with his future not set in stone until the finalization of the WWE / AAA sale. Because if you guys don't know, yes, WWE did announce the acquisition of AAA, but the sale is not finalized until, I believe, the third quarter of 2025. The sale is expected to take place at the end of the third quarter of the financial period. That's what it says here. Despite contrasting contract reports, both Hayes and the Meltzer reported that Del Rio and most of the AAA wrestlers are not expected to be on WWE television, but rather in Mexico under the AAA banner following the purchase completion. In a quote by Dave Meltzer, of course, from the Wrestling Observer, these signings are for the Mexican market. It's not like Alberto is going to show up on Raw or SmackDown. Vikingo may, or at least on NXT, I would expect, Meltzer said on Wrestling Observer Radio. That's the basis. Continuing on, this is not an extension of their AAA contracts. This is new. These are new deals, and more people are expected to sign new deals. In the case of Del Rio, Meltzer added that WWE is more concerned about licensing and marketing surrounding him. Del Rio previously worked in WWE from 2009 until 2014 before returning in 2015 for another year. Along with WWE's acquisition of AAA will come the NXT Worlds Collide event, where both talents from AAA and WWE NXT will wrestle under the same roof at the Kia Forum on June 7th. WWE nor AAA have confirmed the talents on this show. So I read this from WrestleZone.com. So there was a lot of conflicting reports about WWE and Alberto Del Rio. Now, number one, Alberto Del Rio, of course, is the current AAA Mega Champion. If you guys don't know, Alberto Del Rio has been arrested numerous times in recent years and has had a bad reputation. And I don't think any wrestling organization would want them or want him. Clearly, AAA does. Because if you guys don't know, Alberto El Patron, as he is known outside of the WWE, and the WWE is known as Alberto Del Rio, but in AAA and outside of the WWE, he's known as Alberto El Patron. Alberto El Patron is currently the AAA Mega Champion. How in the world you have Alberto El Patron as the AAA Mega Champion, that being your world champion, is insane. To me, it just screams, it's baffling to me, the fact that this guy is the world champion of AAA. It's insane. It is ridiculously insane. But WWE signed Alberto Del Rio to a new deal. A lot of people were freaking out, and a lot of people were spreading false information on social media about WWE and Alberto Del Rio. People need to understand that this is not a case of WWE bringing in Alberto Del Rio with open arms, because Alberto Del Rio wasn't the only guy that was signed from AAA. A lot of other wrestlers that wrestle for AAA have signed new contracts under the WWE/TKO umbrella. A lot of the talent, as reported by Dave Meltzer, have signed new contracts with the WWE. And this is going to be a case of since WWE is going to be owning AAA, since the deal is going to be finalized in the third quarter of 2025, WWE, wants to keep things straight and they want to sign their talent, to their contracts, considering they're going to be owning AAA. So a lot of the talent that is going to be wrestling under AAA is going to be having WWE contracts, but it's not a case of them showing up on Raw or SmackDown. And maybe some of them could possibly show up on NXT. Of course, NXT right now has the whole crossover with TNA. WWE has a big crossover with TNA, and it's a 5-year partnership. Who's to say that WWE eventually purchases the assets of TNA? I made that bold prediction before. I genuinely believe it will definitely happen. In the next couple of years, WWE will own TNA. Don't get it twisted. But this is not a case of Alberto Del Rio returning to the WWE. He's just going to be wrestling under the WWE umbrella, considering the current promotion that he works with, AAA, has been purchased by the WWE. So don't get it twisted. You're not going to see Alberto Del Rio on Raw or SmackDown anytime soon. But again, it's quite shocking to me. But again, this is TKO. This is the same people that own the UFC. And the guys in the UFC say a lot of controversial things. So, I mean, I'm not really that shocked that they signed Alberto Del Rio to a new contract. I assumed that they were going to kind of like drag him by the wayside or leave him by the wayside, but clearly that didn't happen. But Alberto El Patron is signed by the WWE, but he's only going to be wrestling in AAA and AAA only. Moving on to our next story, Hulk Hogan. Yes, Hulk Hogan once again is in the news. Hulk Hogan is in the news. Wow, what a shocker. Well, Hulk Hogan is, of course, the limelight of controversy. The limelight of controversy. And you already know that controversy. I don't have to explain it to you all. If you want, you can look it up. But clearly, Hulk Hogan is a controversial figure. And no, it's not because of his political beliefs. It's because of other stuff. And you can look up those other things. Clearly, the guy says anything. But he was in the news this week. Of course, Hulk Hogan has his Real American beer. Of course, in the first Raw on Netflix, he was booed out of the building. And of course, he announced his Real American Freestyle Wrestling with Eric Bischoff. And he says it's going to be just as big as the UFC and WWE. Huh. Yeah, right. But Hulk Hogan was in the news this week. He was on TMZ and he was on the Pat McAfee show promoting his Real American Freestyle Wrestling organization, of course, the organization that he's going to be starting with Eric Bischoff. And it's not pro wrestling, by the way. It's legitimate real wrestling, like amateur wrestling. But he talked about one certain wrestler. So I'm going to read this. I'm reading this article from Cage Side Seats. They basically summarize the whole thing. The launch of Real American Freestyle Wrestling has given Hulk Hogan plenty of opportunities to talk to the media over the past week. In interviews with TMZ and the Pat McAfee show, the Hulkster has used Shelton Benjamin. And I love that they put this in the article. They wrote to put himself over, which means to make yourself look good, but they crossed it over to really correct it. It was so funny. As an example of great amateur wrestlers who went on to have successful pro wrestling careers. Benjamin let one slide, but twice was too much. Today, that being May 6th, which today's May 11th, Shelton fired back. So what was the real issue? So Hulk Hogan was talking about wrestlers that crossed over from the amateur world to the pro wrestling world. And he was talking about Shelton Benjamin. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, he was talking about Shelton Benjamin. Turns out there was one issue, and this was a really big issue. And the issue was that he didn't pronounce Shelton Benjamin. Instead, Hulk Hogan, and this was not one mistake. This was not like a situation where he mispronounced his name once. This was numerous times. This guy repeatedly on both TMZ and the Pat McAfee show called Shelton Benjamin Shelton. I swear on my mother's life, he said that numerous times. Numerous times. Benjamin Shelton. What? I'm being serious, man. This is the same guy that said that he was going to be a part of Metallica. Like, I'm telling you guys, Hulk Hogan says the most weirdest things. This guy could tell you that he was a part of a lot of world's history. You know, he could tell you that, you know, he was a part of the building of, he could literally say anything. He could literally say anything. He's like, oh yeah, I was slated to, you know, fight Conor McGregor. Like he literally says anything. The most ludicrous statements Hulk Hogan would always say. The guy would always try to make himself look good. The ego on Hulk Hogan is crazy. Like this guy legitimately said that he was slated to be a part of Metallica. I'm being serious. I'm being serious. This guy actually said that. But Hulk Hogan said that Shelton Benjamin, or he was talking about Shelton Benjamin, and he called Shelton Benjamin Benjamin Shelton. So Shelton Benjamin went on Twitter. He went on Twitter, and he heard about what was going on. And he tweeted this out, and I quote, "Message to @Hulk Hogan. You lost me forever with your quote-unquote don't get caught, or as you would like to call it, a quote-unquote apology speech." If you guys don't know what he's talking about, of course, when all the controversy behind the racism came out with Hulk Hogan back in 2015, WWE basically erased Hulk Hogan from history. That was a very real thing that happened. A lot of the controversy involving the racism of Hulk Hogan came out in 2015, and WWE immediately took action and erased every single mention of Hulk Hogan. So then they bring Hulk Hogan back, I think it was like, 2019? Because they were like, the controversy, you know, kind of dimmed down, blah, blah, blah. They brought Hulk Hogan back. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, this was at Crown Jewel, which was a Saudi Arabia show. I believe that was the show. Correct me if I'm wrong. WWE had Hulk Hogan go backstage legitimately and apologize to the whole roster for the things that he said. But here's the catch. A lot of the stuff that he said in that meeting, even though it was dubbed as an apology, realistically, it was not an apology. The apology went from an apology to saying, to basically telling the talent, oh, just be careful whenever you say stuff, you know, be careful, you know, you there can be secret cameras everywhere, there can be secret microphones everywhere. Be careful what you say, brother. It basically it went from an apology to essentially a warning of be careful what you can say, be careful what you know, you may get caught in certain scenarios. That was essentially the whole meeting. It wasn't really an apology. It was really a meeting. And a lot of the talent took offense to that. And it was a big story. So continuing on with the quote by Shelton Benjamin. Message to @Hulk Hogan, you lost me forever with your don't get caught, or as you would like to call it, an apology speech. So rather than screw up my name and pretend that we ever had any sort of camaraderie, which we never had. So again, Shelton Benjamin is exposing Hulk Hogan for his lies. Please do me a favor. And then he added a gif of Will Smith at the Oscars when he famously slapped Chris Rock, which sparked a lot of controversy. Showed a gif of Will Smith saying, keep my name out your effing mouth. So that is exactly what Shelton Benjamin stated. MVP came in, he chimed in, and he tweeted, and I quote, he replied to NoDQ.com, and he says, pathological lying piece of human excrement. So a lot of current wrestling stars do not like Hulk Hogan. What are my thoughts on this? Look, this is not going to be a whole Hulk Hogan hate train. I'm not going to sit here and say, you know, Hulk Hogan is nothing nowadays. Look, without Hulk Hogan, this business wouldn't be where it's at. Without Hulk Hogan, wrestling isn't where it's at. Let's be honest. Wrestling isn't where it is today without Hulk Hogan. That's a very real comment. It's a very real statement to make. And if you say that statement, you are justified and it makes sense. And a lot of people would agree. But here's the issue. Hulk Hogan has a history of number one, lying, and number two, being a lie. Number two, basically making it all about himself. Hogan is known for burying people. Hogan is known for making people look bad. And Hogan is known for making a whole entire situation all about himself. It's true. It's true. Look no further than all the comments that he's been making in the past couple of years. Oh, I was slated to do this. I was slated to do that. Bro, this man can't stop talking about himself. He cannot stop talking about himself. Hulk Hogan has his Real American beer. He shows up. People see through his BS. He gets booed out of the building in LA. He starts Real American beer. Apparently there was some controversy with the whole meet and greet, that people paid for a meet and greet, and when they showed up to that meet and greet, they didn't see Hulk Hogan because Hulk Hogan left early. That's a real story as well. That's a real story as well. Hulk Hogan is all over the place. 100% Hulk Hogan is all over the place. And the fact that he said this numerous times. He said Shelton Benjamin's name wrong numerous times. Calling him Benjamin Shelton on a consistent basis, to me, just screams he does not know what either A, he does not know what he's talking about. B, it's probably age. I don't know, man. How do you go on TMZ and the Pat McAfee show and make the same error numerous times? Calling him Benjamin Shelton. Are you serious? Shelton Benjamin had every right to be upset. I'd be upset too. But man, Benjamin Shelton. I'm not angry. I'm just saying, it's laughable. It's laughable. Hulk Hogan I've said this before and I'll say it again. Hulk Hogan has become the laughingstock of the entire wrestling industry. He has. Hulk Hogan has become an embarrassment. He has. And I hate to say it, but it's true. It's true. So those are my thoughts on Hulk Hogan. Benjamin Shelton, guys. Oh my God, I love the work that Benjamin Shelton do. That Benjamin Shelton does. Oh, but he won't say John Cena's name wrong. Imagine him calling John Cena Cena John, or Brock Lesnar Brock. Come on, how do you screw that up? How do you screw a simple name as Shelton Benjamin? It's Shelton Benjamin, not Benjamin Shelton. He said this like 3 times. 3 times. Benja who? Elizabeth III on the chat. Benja who? Yeah, Benjamin Shelton. I never heard of a Benjamin Shelton. I heard of a Shelton Benjamin, but I never heard of a Benjamin Shelton. Benjamin Shelton. Benjamin Shelton. All right, moving on to more controversy, because this week was just full of controversy on social media. We're going to be talking about Ricochet and Javon Evans, man. Ricochet and Javon Evans. Now, last week on the show, I talked about Ricochet and how he was basically just trying to make the internet wrestling community mad. And clearly it showed this week, because Ricochet, who now wrestles for AEW, he formerly wrestled for the WWE for a couple of years. He now wrestles in AEW. And Javon Evans, who wrestles in NXT, went on a Twitter ramble. Now, I'm reading this whole article because they summarized the whole thing on 411 Mania. AEW star Ricochet and WWE NXT superstar Javon Evans got into an argument via social media. It was prompted when a fan asked Ricochet what he thinks about Javon Evans. And Ricochet quote tweeted him by stating, and I quote, "I'd squash him." So a fan asked Ricochet about Javon Evans, and Ricochet replied to that fan by saying that he'd squash Javon Evans. And Javon Evans took offense to this. Javon Evans took offense to this. So what happened was that in a series of deleted tweets, and again, I'm reading this from 411 Mania's website, via Fightful, this is according to Fightful, the original source is Fightful, Evans got into it with Ricochet. He initially wrote, quote unquote, "My bad, I just got done training at the Performance Center under Shawn Michaels, something that you don't have or do, but I bet your brown egghead would squash me if Tony told you you would. You would squash me if Tony told you you would. Much love, OG, hashtag young OG, hashtag Tupac of this generation." Ricochet then responded, and I quote, "Brother, I was learning from Shawn Michaels when you was like 12. Then went on to become a multiple-time champion. Let me know when you win one, little boy. And yes, if Tony asked me, I'd definitely beat yo at Ricochet, at King Ricochet," he later added. "Also, by just simply mentioning my name, this is your most engaged with your post. You're welcome for the exposure, kid." Evans then made a little crack about Ricochet now wrestling in front of, quote unquote, 20,000 people, or 2,000 people, I should say, not 20,000, 2,000 people after signing with AEW. Evans wrote, and I quote, "You learned from HBK, that being Shawn Michaels, when I was 12 and became a multiple-time champion. Now you're wrestling in front of 2,000 people," which, by the way, 2,000 people is not bad, unless it's half empty, which was the case of AEW last year. Now continuing on with the tweet. "Now you're wrestling in front of 2,000 people every week for a crackhead." Javon Evans called Tony Khan a crackhead. Talk about an upgrade. Am I right? Hashtag the young OG. Evans also referenced Ricochet's boss, AEW president and CEO Tony Khan, writing, quote unquote, "Sounds like Mr. Khan isn't giving you enough attention, so you had to come for a successful ass youngin'. You're giving me the most views on my post, and I'm finally helping you get the most attention you've ever had in your career. All love." Ricochet later fired her back. "How many people does a PC hold? Bah ha ha ha, but keep up the energy. Makes you look cool." Evans later deleted his posts, but you can view, of course, 411 Mania actually showed the replies and the snapshots of all the tweets. What are my thoughts on this, man? This was crazy. This was absolutely crazy. Javon Evans and Ricochet, man. Javon Evans, of course, wrestles for NXT in the WWE. Ricochet wrestles for AEW, and there was a whole back and forth going on between the wrestlers, between both of these guys. Number one, a lot of people are saying that Javon Evans cooked Ricochet or Ricochet cooked Javon Evans. I, for one, genuinely believe that Ricochet kind of cooked Javon Evans. I'm not going to lie. And why do I say that? I genuinely believe that Ricochet genuinely cooked Javon Evans. I genuinely believe Ricochet cooked Javon Evans simply because of the fact that Javon Evans fell for the bait and responded. And now, looking back, he deleted those tweets. If you delete your tweets, clearly something is wrong. Now, this could possibly be a case of somebody in NXT telling him to delete those tweets, but who knows? And apparently the story is going, I don't know if this is true or not, but apparently the story that is going around is that now the Performance Center, the PC, they have a lot of the recruits or a lot of the people that are training at the PC taking social media classes. Apparently that is a real thing. After this whole incident, it caused the entire PC to learn how to, evaluate yourself and how to present yourself on social media. Apparently it caused that. So you may say Javon Evans cooked Ricochet, and to an extent, yeah, he kind of did cook Ricochet. I'm not going to lie. But again, Ricochet wants you to get a reaction, wants you to react. I said this last week. Why is Ricochet tweeting the way that he is? It's because he wants to show the world what he is capable of. He wants to get a reaction out of people. I've always said this. Ricochet, ever since joining AEW, has done some of the best work of his whole career. And that work has sparked, basically, a lot of that work stems behind the fact that he has now a character behind him. Because a lot of the criticism that Ricochet got when he was in the WWE, and even before that, was the fact that he had no character. Ricochet had no character. Now Ricochet does. He's a heel that just loves talking down upon people. He's a really good heel, and he's very good at what he does. And he utilizes social media to infuse and to really add more depth when it comes to his character. Why do you think Ricochet tweets the way that he does? It's because of the fact that he wants to get a reaction out of people. He wants to get a reaction out of people, and he won when. From that first tweet that Javon Evans tweeted back at Ricochet, Ricochet already won the argument simply because of the fact that Javon Evans replied. No shade against Javon Evans, by the way. He stood on his own. I'm not here to talk down on Javon Evans. Javon Evans talked down, he talked the talk. I ain't gonna lie. And this is not me being biased towards one side or the other. This is just my opinion on the whole situation. Because you got a lot of fans observe Observe other fans because they're saying, "Oh, I've noticed that you've been tweeting pro AEW tweets. Oh, I've noticed that you've been tweeting pro WWE tweets." You want to know a tweet that I got this past week? You want to know what tweet that I got? I have it right here. This is from somebody that I followed, by the way. And they're probably watching this. I don't know. And if you are, all power to you. Thank you for joining me on the stream. But I'm going to say this right here and right now. This drove me nuts when I got this tweet. I'm not going to name this person, but they tweeted this, and I quote, "I've noticed with a lot of your tweets, you have gotten very pro AEW, but Ricochet has taken a lot of shots at WWE, and maybe, just maybe, Evans had enough of him bashing the place that he works." Those last few comments, I could understand him tweeting. But the first tweet that I got was, "I've noticed a lot with your tweets that you have gotten very pro AEW. I've noticed that with a lot of your tweets, you've gotten pro AEW." I'm sorry. Are you observing what I'm tweeting? Are you observing what I'm tweeting? You sound like a school principal right now. What is that? "I've seen that you've recently gotten pro AEW." And who cares? Who cares? Who cares? I'm just stating my opinion. Some of these fans don't understand. I'm telling you, wrestling fans are the worst types of fans in the world of any industry. It's ridiculous. They tweet at you, "Oh, I've seen that you've been very pro AEW." And who cares? Who cares? Wrestling's not real, bro. Wrestling's not real. Go watch other content. Go watch The Sopranos. Go watch Suits. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't understand these people. These are the same people that got offended about the whole Ricochet tweeting and all that stuff. Look, Ricochet tweeting, you may think one thing. I'm gonna say my opinion on this. I like the fact that Ricochet's tweeting the way that he's tweeting. Because you want to know why? A lot of people were criticizing Ricochet before that he needs a character, he needs this and that. Him utilizing social media the way that he's utilizing social media is the way. Him utilizing social media the way that he's utilizing social media is exactly what it's right there with his new character. He wants to talk smack amongst a lot of other people, and that's the whole purpose. If you are a heel in this business, you got to use social media a certain way. You can't just break kayfabe. Ricochet ain't the guy that's breaking kayfabe. Ricochet is doing what he does best, and that's being a heel. The guy is living life. Look who he's dating. He's dating Samantha. He's married to Samantha Urban. He's married to Samantha Urban. The guy's living life. And he's talking smack amongst a lot of these other wrestlers because that's his character. And he wants people to fall for the bait. He wants people to fall for the bait. And people don't understand that. They just view Ricochet as, oh, he now wrestles for AEW, so he's now talking bad about WWE. And who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Ricochet is only talking about his experience. That's it. That's it. That's all he's talking about. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Seriously, who cares? The whole Javon Evans Ricochet situation is so funny. It's hilarious. It's really funny, man. It is so funny. And then you got fans on social media saying that, oh, I've gotten very pro AEW. Bro, I'll criticize AEW when I want to criticize AEW. I'll criticize WWE when I want to criticize WWE. What is up with these tribalistic fans, man? It's one side or the other. Bro, wrestling's not real. What is this? Wrestling fans are like Star Wars fans, man. They're toxic. They're toxic. They're toxic, man. They're crazy. But again, the whole Javon Evans Ricochet situation, it got a good laugh out of me. It was pretty funny. I laughed. Ricochet, again, I thought Javon Evans lost the whole argument. From the moment Javon Evans responded, Ricochet won the whole argument, period. Because that's what Ricochet wants. Ricochet wants a reaction. But that's just my opinion. If you disagree with me, that is fine. If you think another way, that is fine. But that's just what I believe. And no, it's not me being pro AEW. It's just whatever. It's from what I'm observing, from what I'm seeing. It's not me being pro AEW. Because trust me, AEW has made some stupid mistakes in the past, and they still do. I will criticize them when I want to criticize them. Same thing with WWE. I've noticed that you become very pro AEW, and who cares? Who cares? These fans are crazy. All right, we're going to be moving on to Double or Nothing, and from what it looks like, this is going to be our last topic before we get out of here. So, Double or Nothing is going to be taking place May 25th, and for the first time, Double or Nothing is actually not going to be taking place in Las Vegas. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I'm tired of Las Vegas. I said this last week on the program, and I believe 2 weeks ago as well. One of the biggest problems with AEW is that they run the same markets every year. And whenever you book a show in the same market every single year, fans are going to, it's not going to be special anymore, and fans are going to stop going to those shows. And we saw that with AEW last year. Their attendance was atrocious for their weekly shows last year. They're moving to smaller venues for weekly shows, but the attendance has picked up a little bit more. So that's great. But in terms of AEW Double or Nothing, we have 2 matches announced, and the matches that were announced were the finals of the Owen Hart Cup tournament. Of course, we got Mercedes versus Jamie Hayter, and the winner who wins the Owen Hart Cup tournament is going to be facing Toni Storm for the AEW Women's World Championship. And even though I would love to see a Jamie Hayter versus Toni Storm match from what it looks like, AEW is going to go with Mercedes versus Toni Storm because clearly that is the bigger match. So they're probably going to go with that. But the other match that they booked was, of course, Will Ospreay versus Hangman, and that was the result of the old Owen Hart Cup tournament. Both men are in the finals of the Owen Hart Cup tournament, and we got Will Ospreay versus Hangman Page. They had a very good segment this past Wednesday on Dynamite. Very good segment. I like this match. I love Will Ospreay versus Hangman Page. Number one, Will Ospreay has shown that he's by far the best in-ring wrestler in the world, and the guy is basically representing AEW at the moment. But at the same time, he's facing off against the guy that is essentially the main character of AEW. There's a difference of being a top guy and the main character, in my opinion at least. Hangman Page, ever since late 2023, the character progression of Hangman Page has been absolutely fantastic. Fantastic. I've really enjoyed the character progression of Hangman Page, from him falling from grace, from winning the world title to losing the world title, and then going on a downward spiral. And then Swerve comes in and has that phenomenal feud with Swerve. Of course, we had the situation, we had the angle where Swerve breaks into Hangman's house, and then later in the year, Swerve buys his childhood home, only for Hangman to break into his house and burn the whole house down. It was such a good angle, such great TV. Great stuff. And then, of course, we had the cage match at All Out, where it was the chair shot heard around the world. That chair shot was crazy to finish off the show. And then, of course, Hangman beat Swerve. He goes up the ramp and has that look of regret on his face, like, oh my God, what did I just do? Hangman's character progression has been absolutely fantastic. And now he's going to be wrestling Will Ospreay for the finals of the Owen Hart Cup tournament. And, of course, whoever wins the Owen Hart Cup tournament is, of course, going to be facing Jon Moxley, who is the current AEW World Champion and is having his reign of terror as AEW World Champion. And, of course, the whole Death Rider storyline has been nothing but a failure. But, nonetheless, what are my thoughts on this whole match? One of the things that I like about Will Ospreay versus Hangman Page is the fact that the match is unpredictable. Literally anybody could win, and there's no wrong decision when it comes to any of these guys winning. Will Ospreay could easily be the guy that could possibly dethrone Jon Moxley for the AEW Championship. Hangman Page can easily be the guy that can dethrone Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship. There's no wrong answer in this whole scenario. There really is no wrong answer at all. No wrong answer whatsoever. So who do I think is going to be winning that match? My best bet is I definitely do see Hangman Page getting the win. I 100% see Hangman Page getting the win in that match, and he's going to go face Jon Moxley at All In for the AEW Championship, and he's going to win the AEW World Championship. That's what I see happening. But from what it looks like, those are the only matches that have been announced for Double or Nothing. And honestly, besides that, of course, there's rumors that we're possibly going to be seeing Anarchy in the Arena, which is definitely going to happen. We will definitely be getting Anarchy in the Arena. And aside from that, there's anything else that has been announced for the card. So am I excited for Double or Nothing? Not really, but I think the show is going to be good. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Double or Nothing. But yeah, that was the WrestleHavoc podcast from May 11th, 2025. We definitely talked about a lot of things right here on the show, man. We talked about, of course, Sabu, who unfortunately passed away. Again, thoughts and prayers to his family. We talked about Backlash. We talked about Ricochet. We talked about Hulk Hogan. We talked about Alberto Del Rio. We talked about a lot of stuff right here on today's show. But overall, man, I thought today's show was a great show, and we're going to be continuing to give you guys the best wrestling talk anywhere, in any place. So yeah, that was the WrestleHavoc podcast from, again, May 11th, 2025. Be on the lookout for the WrestleHavoc podcast. It is every Sunday night, not only on the WrestleHavoc channel, but also on the World News Network, the Worldwide News Network, WNN, on their Facebook page, and their, of course, YouTube page as well. So be on the lookout for all of that. Be on the lookout for the WrestleHavoc podcast every Sunday night. And also be on the lookout for more content right here on the WrestleHavoc channel. But as always, of course, please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications. I'm on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc channel, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the Squared Circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the freaking referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is yours truly, Flamin' Ricky DeRays, signing out. I'll see you guys all in the next video. Peace.
Get stealing, woo, wheeling, dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun. Yeah! Kurt Angle, yeah! Why, Triple H, you son of a tell me why. And Tony Khan, this is also on you.
I am going to ruin wrestling.
Just get over it.